Alright guys, so today we'll watch another video by Thomas Brush. This one is about Godot, Unity, and Unreal.
Do you use Unity or Godot? This is the big question of our day. I talked with the developer of Dolphin, Ben, aka DevDuck, and he told me exactly why he switched from Unity to Godot. And here's the thing.
That's a big switch. I think he switched a bit early to mid in development, as I remember. I don't really recall the timing, but yeah, it's a big decision to switch the game engine while developing.
Still use Unity, yet I completely agreed with Ben's reasoning. In this clip from the full-length podcast,
by the way, I use Unity 2 as my engine, my current engine. I use sometimes custom engines, depending on the company I work for, and usually Unreal for cinematics. Godot, I only did some testing for research purposes, but it's a very amazing engine. So I'm very interested in hearing more and more about it.
he and I break down exactly why Godot has a significant leg up on Unity. If you're a Unity dev right now, this episode might change your mind, or maybe you'll disagree. Let me know in the comments. Why is Godot the answer?
Well, so I started out with Unity 7-8 years ago. I have two. I think they're still on the Apple App Store. I think Google kicked me off a while ago, but I have two small mobile games that I built with Unity.
What are those called?
Blink is the iOS version, or the iOS game. They're both iOS games. Blink is the first one. Snow Pounce is the second one. These are very simple, mobile, kind of like hyper casual games, right?
Cool.
And I'm super proud of those. I was happy to finish those up. This was kind of at a phase where I was thinking that my foray into game development could become more of a side hustle by working on kind of small mobile hyper casual type of things. Maybe
yeah, because these games are more of solo indie, very small projects rather than a commercial game. As I am seeing with my eyes, they are, I won't say they would be like a successful game. I don't know about his game Dolphin. We need to take a look at it. Of course, Thomas would share some screenshots or video games with it inside this episode.
There was like an ad in-app purchase, ad revenue play, which obviously there is, that's a thing. And I kind of made those two games, and I realized that just wasn't the type of game development I wanted to do, right? I'd been sitting on this idea for this grand RPG, following everyone's advice to start small, make Pong first and finish that.
You start small, but for how long? 2 years, 3 years? Then you are senior in that after like 5 to 6 years. You need now to make something a bit more serious. Your experience is just like an experience of a senior job. So you can't make it small forever. There would be a time that you need to take the next step, make the commercial game, make the big game, make a very good title, or work and a very good title, depending on your choices.
And so I was trying to do that with these two mobile games. But at some point I was like, this isn't like the full creative outlet that I need. It feels a little more like a chore or a job if I'm just like trying to crank out some like simple hyper casual ideas. So that all is to say that when I started down that path, I've had analysis paralysis for a long time, looking at different engines, trying to understand what I wanted to do. Even if I wanted an engine, or if I wanted to like do mono game, like the Stardew Valley creator, right? Don't even have a visual kind of helper, and just get in there and use frameworks and build this thing up.
Wow.
But Unity was a clear winner for like the mobile game space.
Yeah, mobile games are better in Unity because it's one of the best engines in across platform. Unity is also have a very great community, which is good if you were a beginner or you wanted to search something. It's very easy to find a solution for Unity. Also, it has a ton of assets, just like Unreal Engine. So of course, Unity could be a clear win. Only if you do want to make a game and you want to control every single aspect of it. Sometimes people go with custom engines, and if you want to make a very high quality AAA graphics, Unreal is way better. You can make something in Unity, by the way. This is a gameplay of my game Robot Kill. It's AAA, as you see. But if you want the real good triple A graphics, max things, max global animation, nanite, lumen, every single detail, you could use Unreal Engine. Also, if you are more interested in like open source, in my opinion, if you want something that you don't feel like you can change in it, you can change the stuff in the engine. You can customize it as you want, and you want that there is an engine. You don't want to make a custom engine. You could use Godot, for example. But either than it being open source, like Godot being open source, and GDScript is way easier than C# and C++, I don't know why would someone switch to Godot. It's still in development. Of course, in the future, it would be a very great, amazing engine because now it has a very respectful and very big community base. So, of course, it will get better and better. But other than it being open source and GDScript being easier than C# and C++ or Blueprints, I don't get the idea why someone would switch. Only other reason I just popped up in mind, which is Godot is way lighter. It's like some megabytes, and the projects are easier to open and stuff like that.
Because it seemed like there were a lot of examples of mobile games made with Unity. They had really nice plugins for Google AdMob and all this stuff. So that ended up being the way that I went. And also just so much content out there about Unity. There's so much to help a new game developer learn. You know, this was at one of the heights of brackies that I probably, was just loving all that and taking all that stuff in. So that was a great place to start. When I shifted to the idea of building a bigger project for PC rather than mobile, that felt like an opportunity to reevaluate the tools I was using. I definitely have some gripes. What?
If you are making your game in different platforms, you need to reconsider your pipeline sometimes.
I had gripes with Unity because I really haven't touched it in a long time. I had kept hearing about Godot being this up and coming open source. They're not going to make you have a splash screen at the front or anything. They're not going to take a piece of the pie if you're super successful. A couple things also really drew it to me. It's super small and lightweight. I mean, it's like 400 megs or something. Maybe I'm making that up, but it's pretty small.
It is very, very light. Dude, I've opened up Unreal. I'm sure you have too.
Unreal. I agree with them. Opening Unreal is like trying to download it and set it up, and then opening the project is like trying to download code Modern Warfare 3 times. It's diabolical, but it's a great engine. You will get the best graphics you could see in your life. You could put a cube, and the cube would look better than any render engine I've seen.
Up Unreal, I've opened up Unity, and I've opened up Godot. Godot is like instant.
Oh yeah.
Godot is like a lightning speed. I'm not gonna lie. Godot is very, very light.
Up here now, obviously,
it could be even. I do not doubt that it could be even done in mobile. You could run that engine in mobile, and I think people done it.
Opening up a blank project, but even opening a blank project in Unity, my computer starts to take off and heat up. It's so weird. Unreal's worse. I don't know if it's just my experience, but Unreal, it's like so heavy. It is so heavy.
Well, the other thing for me too.
One time I ran Unreal, by the way, it was a problem with my PC, but I ran Unreal on the and I heard a spark. The battery of the motherboard just jumped out of the PC. So of course this is a hardware problem in the PC, a weird hardware problem in the PC. But like the device were so overloaded, the problem showed up like this, and it was so funny. But yeah, Unreal is really heavy. Unity is a little bit less heavier than Unreal, to be honest. But Godot, it's lightning speed, to be honest.
It's like I knew that I wanted to stay in this, at least for now, this 2D kind of pixel art space. Excuse me, because that's just what I don't know.
If you're making something like this, Godot could work for you, but you need to understand that if you want to go to something a bit higher, you will face some problems with Godot, like as we mentioned many times before, shader compilation and stuff like that. You will cross-platform also. You will like have some problems with Godot.
A lot of the games that I like to play are kind of in that space. And it feels like the art was more approachable because I knew I wanted to be doing this all myself. And it's like I could probably figure out pixel art a little bit better than I could figure out Blender and things like that. And so Godot really stuck out because, you know, I think one of the early selling points is that they have kind of like this dedicated 2D viewport rather than Unity lock in the Z-axis or whatever the implementation is on their side. So I actually made a video where I did like a small prototype in Godot just to try it out because I was learning the engine at the time and I really liked it. I think I ended up in the early days of Dolphin, I started it in Unity and, you know, I made some minor progress, but I just kind
You're using Unity in lights mode is diabolical. Why would you do this? Oh my god, I feel my eyes hurting just by watching that.
of hit a breaking point with some of the things that I wasn't a huge fan of that engine for and decided to like give this Godot prototype a shot. And
what are those breaking points?
So this is about 5 years ago. I'll try to remember some of my bigger ones. I really hit some tough points getting Blink out the door in terms of keeping Unity up to date. And this is probably like a minor thing that, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but like it seemed like at least once a week, Unity was prompting me to update to the latest version, which is a multi-gigabyte download. It takes...
Don't do that. If it might tell you, but don't do it. Never switch the version if you are already working on a game. That will mess up your game, especially if it was a grand update or like a very big update. So of course, if you like whatever the engine is, you were working with Unity 2021. It's a very old version, but you've been working on the game since 2021. Don't go to Unity 6. Everything will be pink, every shader will be broken, multiple stuff would be destroyed, the project would be diabolical. So of course, do not go and just update. That's true for Unreal Engine. Many people, when Unreal Engine 5 released, they were working on their games with Unreal Engine 4. They did not switch up. You cannot switch up. That's bad. That's diabolical. Do not do that. Of course, if it tells you to update, it's not mandatory for you to update. Don't do that. That would mess up your project
forever. And then things would break in my project. Like every time. And it's like a simple mobile game project. It's like I really wanted to keep this up to date because
the base code of the engine is changed. It changed everything. Every call method you might did is broken. Every shader might be broken, especially if it's like a very major update. So never do that. That's totally mess up. It will mess up your project and destroy it.
You know, I don't know. I just wanted to have the newest features. I was already close to being up to date. Let's just try to make that effort. That drove me nuts.
Yeah. You know the trick to that is?
Never update it.
Don't update it.
Yeah. Thanks, Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never
It's
update.
a simple solution, I'm sure. Yeah.
Because like each update is like a version. It's not like your Instagram app or your face. It's just like versions of Unity.
No, but it's I'm being tongue in cheek. It sucks that that's true, but it is true. Yeah. You know, like Twisted Tower, we're gonna launch that game with Unity 2022. I'm not updating.
Exactly. My Robotic Hell is on 2022, and I've never updated it. Unity 6 looks amazing and have better optimization, but what the fuck would I do? I would not screw up my project just for new updates. Do not do that.
That thing. Everyone's like, update.
It's amazing. It looks so cool.
To Unity 6. Come on, Thomas, what are you doing? I'm like, the whole thing will explode if I do
Exactly, it will.
And even worse, I've done it. I did update to Unity 6.
I did too, but I did it on like a separate PC in the company just to test if that might work. You can't do that. You can copy all the files, try on another PC or something that you will never use again, and try to update. If it broke, 100% to 99.9% it will broke. The project broke, and I just told them forget that. We're not working with Unity 6.
Surface looks fine, and then you try and play the full game, and there's like a billion small things that you're like, wait, what? How did that happen? Yeah. Why is that texture pink? What just happened? And it's all this little stuff that you could easily miss. You're spinning the chamber, you know?
Yeah.
So I just keep it as is. And you're right, the update size downloads, the size of the update is huge. I'll
Yeah,
say
yeah.
this.
I
One of
usually just install the versions that I use. I never update it. Oh, fuck it. I won't update it.
the issues with all these updates is you might get an update to one of the render pipelines, and you might get, but the problem with all the render pipelines is there's 3 render pipelines, and then
Yeah,
inside
we have HDRP, URP, and SRP, or built-in render pipeline. HDRP for very good graphics. URP is more of good graphics and built-in features, good for optimization too. SRP is like there's no features from the universal render pipeline. Not many people use HDRP. To me, I use HDRP if I want to make a very good graphics, but yeah. So yeah, you need to understand that it's a bit more confusing in Unity game engine, and you could even do a custom render pipeline, by the way.
of each render pipeline is forward and then deferred, and then there's forward plus, and there's all these different quality settings. It's like nested rendering pipelines. I don't even know how to describe it.
So the best way to deal with it, I agree with Thomas, is just to think as it's different programs. So you're switching to a different program. So don't do that, of course. Yeah.
It is a mess. And is Godot that way? Does Godot have a bunch of different
Godot, I guess it's not built in the same way that Unity was built, and they do not have the same complications, because I've seen many people that just update it and they have nothing to be broken.
pipelines? And
To my knowledge, no. I mean, I have a selector in the top right for forward plus, mobile, and compatibility. Those are my 3 options, and they're pretty clearly defined in the documentation what they do, and I'm pretty grateful for that. So,
but it's not really a 3D engine, is it?
So it has a Vulkan backend as of Godot 4. Like I said, I'm not much of a 3D person yet, but they.
By the way, if you I don't advise making a 3D game in Godot. I don't advise that. And if not cartoonish style, I don't advise it to be in Unity. I'm sorry, I know many people like me make realistic games in Unity, but it takes a very big ton of experience. You need to be very experienced to make really good graphics in Unity, as you see in the screen. But in my humble opinion, if you are making a realistic game, 3D, make it in Unreal. If it's cartoonish, a bit anime style or something, make it in Unity. Godot's 3D engine still needs more updating.
They are striving
only
to
if it's like PX or old or pixelated style 3D game. It's good work in Godot.
kind of work towards that. They've got the Vulkan renderer now, and I think in Godot 4 as well, they did a bunch of work on like the global illumination system.
Yeah.
So they're working towards that. But what you said was that was going to be like my next point for Unity. It's like, and maybe you can tell me if this is just a few examples of this, but it always felt like there was more than one official way to do something. Am I wrong? Because like it's multiple rendering pipelines, it's multiple input managers. Like, I don't know.
When everything is official, nothing's official.
Right.
Exactly.
And you're absolutely.
It's like a mess. I agree with him. Like, whoa, the input system the first time I was introduced to it, it was a fucked up thing. Render pipeline, I did not have a problem because I did code game engines before, so it was not a big deal to me. But I was like, what the fuck? Why does they have multiple input system? What the fuck is going on here? And yeah, it's a complete mess in Unity, to be honest.
Right. It's so frustrating. You know, and I'll be the first to admit, I will use Unity probably until it dies. Because it's the same reason why, like, I drove stick shift for years. It's like, I just knew how to do it. That's how I knew this was.
I'm comfortable with it. By the way, I'm using Unity just because I'm comfortable to it. If I was more comfortable with Unreal, I would made my game in Unreal, to be honest, because it's 3D and it's FPS. Of course, Unreal would be a better choice. But I'm more comfortable with Unity. Most of my assets is in Unity, so why changing to someone like me? But you need to make a real good choice because you are in a split road.
Just what I knew, and you just get used to it. But it is way too heavy, and to your point, everything has an official. And then they tell you stuff. I was just griping with David Whaley about this on Discord. It's like they say one thing, dynamic batching is the greatest thing ever. Dynamic batching,
it's
and then you try and do it, and it doesn't work at all.
Of course, yeah.
The way it was explained, but sometimes it does work, and sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah.
To me, dynamic batching worked for some reason. Many of my friends and coworkers, it did not work. They said, "What the fuck you did that?" And I told them the same thing as you. I don't know why that happened. To be honest, it might needed more work on the end of the engine itself. So yeah,
It's
Maybe
what it is
even
it's just too
clearer
complex. It's a
documentation.
bloated engine. So yes, that I agree with you about the documentation
Yeah.
or the official way to do things.
Yeah.
Unreal and Godot have like a very straightforward documentation design.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, yeah. And apart from all that, it's like I'm making simple little 2D games. There's just so much of Unity that I never touched. And that hit me every
That's
time
right.
I was downloading a multi-gigabyte update, right? It's like, I'm not using so much of this stuff. Like,
Yeah.
can I simplify? And Godot was the answer to that.
It reminds me of an infomercial where they're like, you get the spaghetti grate or the cheese grater, but you also get the what are we going to say here? Some random thing that is also for the attachment
The restaurant French fryer.
to spin it. And then you also get the backpack to store it in. And then you also get special sneakers with the cheese grater logo on it.
Yeah,
It's like, I don't
you
need any
it.
of this stuff. What am I paying
But wait, there's
for?
more. There's always more.
Wait, there's more. And everything is low value at that
Yeah.
point. You know, it includes
Until they make like a full release, LTS release. To be honest, I do not update my Unity. And if I'm working with a project, I stay on the same version.
the main product itself. This is the
And yeah, Unity is not 2D focused. And many techniques that I use in my 2D games are 3D, by the way. So yeah, you should know that it has a multiple and amazing 2D components, but it's more complicated than like Godot.
problem with software is they can try to strip it down to bare bones and make it good again.
Yeah, I agree, but why would they do it? Most of their users are already comfortable with Unity. And new users, to be honest, are just switching from one engine to another. So they in their statistics, they downloaded Unity.
It's better to just start fresh because it's so hard to, it's like I've been working on this game Twisted Tower for almost 4 years now. I can't imagine stripping this thing down and cleaning up the project because it's just so like one little, if I clean this,
If you remove one feature, your full fucking level is messed up. That's why we sometimes just don't clean the code if you did not started making it from the beginning clean. Because no fuck, it works. Why would I do that?
this up, it breaks this down here. And if I clean this up, it breaks this. And it's so hard to predict what's going to break when you clean stuff up. And I think the same is true with software.
That's
So,
funny you
so
mentioned
might as
that.
well just start over. Yeah.
Just thinking that if Unity is the newest version 6, if they came out and said Unity 7, the cleanup patch, we stripped a bunch of stuff out, I would have no interest. But if they said Unity 2.0 built from the ground up to be simple, I'd be interested. I'd
Sometimes it's the marketing and the name, by the way.
look into it, right? Just be curious.
Unity
That's
2.
called Godot. I mean,
Here we are. Yeah, here we are. You're right.
Yeah, it would be. I would not be surprised at all if in a year Unity's like Unity 2.0 is out. We are getting rid of
it would be a very
prefabs.
great
Everything
move.
is something called nodes. It's like, oh,
Yep.
it's
Here we
Godot.
go. Yep.
So what? Tell me about Godot. Like, what are some key differences between Godot and Unity?
I think, something that obviously comes to mind is GD script, which I think is a good thing for
Told you in the first of the video. I know every cons and pros of it.
some and a bad thing for others. It's not a language that you use anywhere else, like C#. I've written C#
Exactly,
for work. I've actually done Unity work at work, which is great. But you're not gonna take GD script anywhere. At least it seems to me. Of course, it's kind of like Python, so I didn't find it to be a tough thing to learn.
Yeah.
I thought it was the
that's
most
one
similar to C#.
difference. No, it's pretty.
It's more like Python in syntax, not like C#.
It's not very verbose. Yeah, and we can look at some obviously when
We will when we open it up. I'm surprised to hear that because I took a look at it and I could read it.
Well, so Godot.
Yeah, of course, but all all languages are the same. It's just a change in syntax and some functionalities. So if you learned one language, reading other languages is the same. It would just need some like learning new syntaxes and stuff. It does not only if like you are learning the language for different use, like for website design or something like that.
Godot supports C#, so maybe you were, I don't know if you were looking at, there's a .NET
Yeah.
build of Godot that supports C# officially.
C#, yeah.
That's the problem. Okay, but it's
Yeah.
not the official one.
Correct, yeah. The language that really ships with the engine is
Good.
GD script.
And I don't advise you to use it with C#. It will make more problems, and it's already have multiple glitches. So go with the GD script.
Would you think that the C# is just as effective as
So,
the Godot script or GD script?
GD script is easier to learn, less effective than C#. C# is harder to learn, more effective than GD script. C++ is destroys both of them in effectiveness and its memory collection and stuff like that. But it's fucking too hard to learn. That made most of Unreal users just use Blueprints.
When I first evaluated Godot 5+ years ago, I actually started with the mono or the .NET build because, I come from Unity. I already know C#.
Yeah.
At that time, there was slightly less functionality with the C# stuff as they were trying to incorporate it. So it's like you couldn't export to mobile if you did C# and some things like that. So that's all been resolved now. Microsoft actually, I think, provided like a ton of grant money to the Godot, whatever the foundation is now, and helped with its implementation.
But
so now,
still, it's C# is a bit higher.
I think it's
not too much, by the way. I'm talking about 4%.
Caught up, and all of my gripes with it are gone at this point. But I like GD script. It
like it too,
seems to work well in the. People think this is crazy, but I use the editor that's part of the engine. I'm not using VS Code or anything right now, even though
it's okay. Who cares?
there's plenty of extensions and support for it, but it feels very tightly integrated into the scene tree and the node system and everything. I find it to be very intuitive, so it's actually a big plus point for me. I really like GD script.
And by the way, if you're making a mobile game, maybe it's similar to Dolphin or something much bigger, and you want to sell it directly on your own website, it's now possible with Xsolla. This is no longer a niche thing, it's becoming mainstream, which means devs can grow their revenue from live games. Even better, Apple has finally opened up the US market, making it legal to link out to a web shop and take direct payments for your mobile games, bypassing that 30% Apple fee. Xsolla has been doing this since the beginning, pioneering their web shop back in 2021. And now they have a new buy button solution that lets you drop an external purchase link right into your iOS game. Whether you're AAA or you're making a casual game or core, Xsolla has launched over 500 web shops, and they know what works. From a fully custom web shop to maybe a no-code template and going live much faster, they've got you covered.
I have some friends that are doing some game with microtransactions, but yet I never do microtransactions in my games. They suck. So yeah, thanks for watching. Amazing video again by Thomas Brush. Go and check out his channel if you didn't already. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.